Hello everyone. European Union branch manager has been in Nice over the past number of days at a summit organised by the United Nations called the Ocean Conference. This is where they're looking to pursue and implement the European Ocean Pact. Now, of course, the usual protagonists were in attendance. We had Ursula von der Leyen, the unelected and unaccountable head of the European Union. And also we had Emmanuel Macron, of course, who was given a keynote address at this summit. Of course, this is part of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Of course, this is a UN/WEF agenda in terms of 17 SDGs that have to be implemented by 2030. Now, of course, this is about securing our oceans and protecting our oceans under the guise of this, of marine security, marine protection, and of course with the issues around plastic pollution. So let's get into it in a little bit of detail now. Micheál Martin spoke about giving extra money towards climate finance in Ireland. He said over the past number of years Ireland has doubled its budget to over €225 million in climate finance, of course pushing this European Green Deal stroke net zero policy. And of course he said it's a key tenet of Irish foreign policy. Well, that's really unusual to know. The branch manager himself has spoken, so I suppose it's probably correct for his masters in Brussels. And he said it's about climate diplomacy for Ireland. We've used our voice in Ireland, according to Martin, for supporting other countries who are at risk of the climate crisis as well. And he said he will use the European Council presidency in the second half of 2026 as a strong voice to push his climate diplomacy and all this nonsense that he's trying to drive down the throats of ordinary people. And he said that Ireland should be a key leader and it has key marine and maritime objectives. Isn't that interesting? The European Ocean Pact is coming into effect, and of course today von der Leyen said about $1 billion will be targeted towards this. And what's it all about? Let's get into it and see what it's all about. But first of all, before I say that, I just want to say what Micheál Martin has lost the plot on in the French Riviera. Let's look at our own protection of our own coastline. Look at the disastrous state the Irish Navy is in terms of defence forces. Absolutely pathetic. But then Micheál Martin has ran down the conditions and pay and the equipment in the Irish Naval Service for many, many years. And of course, this is part of our maritime security, of course, Micheál. But of course, listen, you're pushing the European narrative. And of course, we have sold off so much of our fishery rights through the European Union as well. They won't tell you about that. Of course, I think we have about over 20% of the European coastline. And at the same time, when you consider that, we still only have about 1 or 2% of the total fisheries rights because of the sell-off of our rights of our own resources. And of course, this is part of the constitution to have the resources of the country to represent and serve the interests of the people in terms of our food security as well. But we've seen many small fishermen being driven out of business because of the massive super trawlers and of course these many other countries who benefit from the Irish economic zone. But that's all the Irish sovereign waters, but they're not regarded when you're members of the European Union and destroying our businesses. And of course he said it's about healthy seas we need for long-term food security, but food security for who? And he spoke about trade. It's probably for the elites to have their food as well. But what von der Leyen has been said has been interesting, because she said it's all about the blue economies. Now, before you get any ideas, the blue economies are towards the sea economies, according to von der Leyen. And of course, this is a money-making racket as well. They've tried to control the land and the food supply on the land, and now it's about controlling the food supply coming out of the oceans and seas. And they want to move towards having, she claims, local fishermen and women working in these coastal communities. But of course, we know it flies in the face of all this, because at the same time, she said she wants to stop any sort of illegal activities. Now, what's the illegal activities coming from von der Leyen herself and her own illegal activities with her Pfizer contract that still hasn't been spoken about by Martin? I'm sure he won't mention it when he's there with Timmy Dooley, another I don't know how you describe Timmy Dooley. He wouldn't even be a shelf stacker probably in the European Union scheme of things in terms of the branch manager, Martin himself, and maybe he'd be a bit lower down the pecking order in that hierarchy of corruption in the European Union. And also what's fundamentally important within this is the drive towards the digitalization of the fish catches as well. And this is what they want to move towards, essentially, to have a digital registration with all those responsible, sustainable fishermen and women. And they'll have a satellite system to protect that they're being monitored properly and the catches being properly registered. Of course, who does this benefit again? This benefits the elites again. But this is more of the same nonsense we've come to expect. Recently, Simon Harris has been named as a young global leader for the World Economic Forum. And of course, part of these sustainable development goals are essentially part of the agenda towards total control in society, of course. And they want to work towards global partners, they said, be pushing this agenda as well. So this is part of the agenda what Micheál Martin has been spending his time, all at our expense, in the French Riviera and the city of Nice on the coast of the Mediterranean as well. But no mention about the human trafficking and the illegal immigration and all that stuff that comes through across the seas as well. But again, this is a drive towards digitalization, and regardless of how it's reported on the media, they won't talk about this. But this is the sinister undertones of these meetings taking place in these plush surroundings on the south of France and the French Riviera. So Martin, a complete and utter stooge for the European Union elites, driving us towards this digital dystopia and totalitarian nightmare. But again, people need to be aware of what's going on and speak out about what's going on in society as well. So thanks a lot for the support, really appreciate it, and please subscribe to my channel. Take care, bye bye.